turn it over to TJ and Lacee.
Thank you, Ann. It is good to be with you all this evening, coming to you from Belleville, Illinois, which is in the Midwest, right outside of St. Louis, right across the river. As Ann indicated, I've been with Allsup. It's actually going on 21 years now. So time's going by quick. Held various roles through that time, and one of the things I get to do in my current role is to do presentations like this, which I very much enjoy, and educate people on Social Security disability and the help that is out there and the help that also provides in various capacities. Most importantly, we're at its core, representing people with Social Security disability. So I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague Lacee, and she's going to kick us off.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us, joining us late in the afternoon on such an enticing topic as Social Security disability insurance. I have been with Allsup now for almost 9 years, and I've held kind of a plethora, wide range of positions. But most importantly, starting out, I was one of the frontline employees, and I was having those daily conversations with patients, your patients, talking about new conditions and the severity and how it was impacting their daily life, and really was able to get a true understanding of how these disabilities do impact individuals, and how Allsup is able to step in and kind of take some of the work off the back end of filing for disability when individuals truly do need it the most. All right. Well, there we go. So what are our objectives today? We have a ton of items to talk about. We are going to break down what SSDI and SSI are. These are programs that fall under the umbrella of Social Security disability, but TJ is going to go into some more details of what each of those programs entail. We are going to discuss the processing timeframes of filing for Social Security. There's actually multiple levels. Each level looks a little different and has its own processing times. We're going to look at some conditions and diseases that Social Security looks at when they're looking at the overall criteria of approving a case. We're also going to touch on some reasons why people get denied and why having a representative can be critical when it comes to getting approved. The Social Security disability system at the end of the day is a government program. And so there are lots of I's to dot and T's to cross, and that can be challenging for somebody when they're not feeling well. And then we're going to talk about the social determinants of health and how those disability resources kind of wrap into that concept, a concept that you guys on this call are very familiar with. So why do healthcare professionals, case managers, social workers, why is it important for you guys to have some foundational education on SSDI? Well, most individuals don't wake up on a random Tuesday and decide to become disabled. They're not prepared. I don't know about you guys, but if I could not go to work tomorrow, I would be very concerned on how I was going to support my family and pay for my household moving forward. So most of the general population is simply not prepared for that. You guys are those workers who are having those challenging conversations, those difficult conversations. They're either still in the hospital or maybe getting discharged from the hospital, or maybe just left a doctor's appointment where they found out about some type of catastrophic illness or a severity increase in their condition, something that's chronic, something that's not curable. And with all of that, they become very financially vulnerable if they're not able to work. So you guys are laying that foundation of, okay, here are those resources for you. It's also often hard to predict recovery times, right? You've got different therapies, chemotherapies, physical therapies. You've got just so many items that can come along with somebody with a new diagnosis or illness or injury. And it can be challenging to say how long that's going to impact somebody from going to work. Most people including myself before working for Allsup, have no idea on how to navigate the system. Again, it's a government system. There's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of expectations. So being able to lay out some of those expectations, again, can be critical when they're filing for disability for the first time. And then just in general, being able to dispel some myths surrounding disability. You know, there's always that, oh, disability approves everyone, why aren't they approving me? Or disability is set up for you to never get approved. So trying to be kind of a baseline of education, and again, setting those expectations of what the disability program involves.
So one of the challenges we have at Allsup is just educating the public on what Social Security disability is and why they might want to explore that further and apply for Social Security disability. And that's something you all can help as case managers, is educating the public. What is Social Security disability and why do I need to know about it? And so we're going to talk about that over the next couple of slides. There are two basic federal programs under the disability umbrella, if you will. So we've got Social Security Disability Insurance, which is an insurance program, and then we've got Supplemental Security Income, which is slightly different. However, both of those disability programs use the same definition for disability. So Social Security has the same definition for both of those programs. If you're disabled but have not worked or don't have enough work quarters of coverage, then you might qualify for the SSI portion. That's the biggest difference between the two. Is SSDI, you have to have paid into the system through FICA taxes to be eligible. If you haven't paid into the system and you don't have a work history, then SSI might be an option for you if you meet Social Security's definition of disability. SSI is also available for children who are disabled as well. The basic definition, so just the basic, very high level definition of Social Security disability is you have to have the inability to do any substantial gainful activity by any reason, by reason of any medically determinable physical or mental impairment, which can be expected to result in death, or which has lasted or can be expected to last for a continuous period of not less than 12 months. One key to that definition is you don't have to have been out of work for 12 months, but your condition has to be expected to last for 12 months. So we'll get more into what that definition means as we go along here. That's the basic definition. So what's the criteria? What other criteria? So we talked about the basic definition. You have to have an impairment that's going to last for 12 months, keep you out of work for 12 months. What are some other criteria that make someone eligible for SSDI? This is again, the one that you have to have paid into the program to be eligible. And so one of the criteria is you have to have worked 5 out of the last 10 years in order to be eligible or to be insured for disability. Again, we think of it as an insurance program. I didn't know that when I started working for Allsup many years ago now. I thought it was when I was paying into Social Security that I was paying into a fund that was building up, and then when I needed it at retirement, I would access that fund. That's not what it is. It's an insurance program, and you have to be insured in order to qualify for it. And there's a disability portion of it. And again, a very, very quick way to determine that is, have you worked 5 out of the last 10 years? Have to be 21 years of age or less than full retirement age. Obviously, if you're at full retirement age, you'd be eligible for retirement at that point. And again, you have to have a physical or mental condition that is so severe that it prevents you from working in any capacity for a period of at least 12 months or is expected to result in death. So what are the benefits? So we often talk to people like, why do I need, I don't want to file for disability. I don't want to start, again, when I first started Allsup, I was thinking about it as a fund. I don't want to start draining the money out of that fund. So why should I apply for disability? Well, a few reasons. One is it obviously it would provide a regular monthly income. So if you're approved disability, you get a monthly check from Social Security. And those checks increase each year for cost of living. Just the last couple of years has been pretty significant increases. And some of those benefits, oftentimes those benefits can be tax-free. In addition to that, if you qualify for disability and you have dependents under the age of 18, we're getting some additional sound coming through. Everybody could mute. There we go. So in addition to the claimant or the beneficiaries benefit that they receive per each month. They would also be eligible for dependent benefits if they have children in the household under the age of 18, up to 50% of what they're getting. There's also, if the Social Security process is very lengthy, very complicated, and sometimes it can take years for them to be approved. Social Security pays back 12 months, up to 12 months from the date that you applied for disability. In addition, they would pay you back pay for that time that you were waiting, which we'll talk about here, mention again later on. But in addition to that, it actually protects future retirement benefits. Again, I thought it was a fund that I was paying into through FICA taxes. And so if you think that way, then you think, oh, no, I'm gonna expire, I'm gonna use my benefits, and they're not going to be available at retirement age. It actually puts a freeze on the earnings record. So every year that you don't work and pay into the system, those zeros on your earnings record actually would lower your future retirement benefit. Whereas if you apply for Social Security, if you're eligible for Social Security disability, it puts a freeze on that earnings record and protects those future retirement earnings. If someone is approved Social Security disability, they're entitled to Medicare. 2 years from the date that they are eligible for cash benefits, they'd be entitled for Medicare. And also it coordinates with other benefits, long-term benefits like long-term disability policies. And then there are return to work benefits. When I was being introduced, mentioned that I work for Allsup Employment Services, which helps with the return to work benefits. So there's a return to work benefit, free assistance to beneficiaries to help them to get back into the workforce if they're able to. What are the benefits? What are the requirements for SSI? We've talked about SSDI. Again, SSDI, the biggest difference is you have to pay it into the system. SSI, again, there's an income, there's a means test, if you will, for SSI, but you have to be over 65, blind or disabled, again, unable to work in any capacity for at least 12 years. The children can be 12 months, excuse me, not 12 years. Children can be eligible if they have a disabling condition like autism or cerebral palsy. Have to be a U.S. citizen. Medicare is not a benefit for SSI because again, like SSDI, you have to pay it into the system to get Medicare. However, oftentimes individuals who are eligible for SSI are also eligible for Medicaid. And then there's a means test. So there are resource limits. For individual, they have to have income and resources below $2,000. For couples, $3,000. And then there are other resource limitations as well that might make you ineligible. You see some of those listed there: real estate, bank accounts, cash bonds. Sometimes other vehicles outside of your own vehicle can count against you as well. And there you can be dual eligible. So there are some that can be eligible for SSI and SSDI. One key reason why that can be helpful is SSDI. There's a 5-month waiting period for cash benefits, whereas SSI there is not. So for those that have a poor work history or a spotty work history, they may be eligible for both, and they may be able to get that SSI during that 5-month period. So here's just a side-by-side of the differences. Again, the same basic definition for disability: have to have a physical or mental impairment that's going to last for 12 months, to keep you out of work for 12 months. Some of these we've covered already. So for SSDI, there's a 5-month waiting period. Social Security doesn't pay for the first 5 months of disability. So for example, if the date you last worked was in June of 2023, Social Security is not going to pay, and they find you, yes, you were disabled as of that date, June 1st of 2023, they're not going to pay benefits. You won't be eligible for benefits for those first 5 months. That's true for every diagnosis or every impairment except for ALS. There is an exception for ALS. If you've got individuals who have ALS, there's not a 5-month waiting period for cash benefits. On the SSI side, you're eligible for benefits begins the first full month after the claim is filed. So it's important that if somebody is eligible for SSI, it does meet that definition that they file as soon as possible. It's important on the SSDI side as well, because again, Social Security will pay up to 5 months from the date, or up to 12 months from the date of application. So the longer you wait, they may miss out on benefits. So it's important to file as soon as possible on both. The average benefit for SSI, that's a set amount. SSI is a set amount. So the max is going to be $914 a month. That goes up a little bit each year, but for 2024, it's $914 a month. For SSDI, it depends on how much they paid into the system. So if you've got high wage earners, it may be high, but the average benefit is $14.83 per month. Again, could be higher or lower depending on their work history. And again, one of the other big differences is Medicare eligibility for SSDI.
Whew, that's a lot of information that TJ just went through. One of the items that he touched base on was the LTD policies. So if an employee is privileged enough that their company offers some type of short-term or long-term disability coverage, this can be employer sponsored. It could be that you've chosen to pay into additional coverage on your own. But most of these plans, in the fine print, of course, require you to file for Social Security disability. And they do that essentially to recoup some of the money that they are paying out. With that being said, if that individual is required to file and they do not, they will in fact stop paying that person their short-term or long-term disability benefits. So it can, again, be critical. You're going to hear me use that word a lot, because when it comes to an individual being able to buy groceries, it is critical. So it's important that they follow the terms of agreement in these long or short-term disability policies, and follow through with filing for disability. They can always file on their own, but making sure that, again, those I's are dotted and T's are crossed is going to be important, because their long-term or short-term disability carrier is going to be looking to them to say, okay, we deem you disabled. We feel like Social Security will also deem you disabled. And if they find out it's because they were denied because the person has not completed paperwork or not essentially done what Social Security has asked, it can impact that probably small monthly payment that they are receiving that may be holding them afloat at that time.
Let's talk now about the process. So when you file a claim, what happens? Why is it so complicated? And what is the process that Social Security uses to go about making a decision? So we talked about the basic definition, but beyond that, when Social Security is looking at it, they use the 5-step sequential evaluation process to determine whether or not somebody has a condition that is severe enough to qualify for Social Security disability. And so here's the 5-step sequential evaluation. So step 1 is simply, is that individual working? If somebody is working, it doesn't matter how severe their impairment is, they're not going to qualify for Social Security disability, even if they have terminal cancer or a diagnosis that has a poor prognosis. And the way Social Security defines work is they define that as SGA, or substantial gainful activity. If somebody is earning $1,550 per month, then Social Security considers them working. If it's under that, it still may be an issue, but Social Security doesn't consider that work. And so that goes up each year. So for 2024, it's 1,550. That's step 1. If somebody's working and earning over that amount, Social Security is going to deny the claim. If they're not working, assuming they're not working and that they're insured for disability from the SSDI side, they have enough credits, then they would move on to step 2. And step 2 is, does the individual have a severe medically determinable impairment? And those words in there, severe medically determinable impairment, are all important and they mean something. Severe means it has to have an impact on the individual's ability to perform a work function. Medically determinable means it has to be documented in the medical evidence. So when we're talking to individuals who are unable to work, it's important that we advise them, make sure you're seeing your doctor. And if you think you may be eligible for a Social Security disability, talk to your doctor about that. Make sure they're documenting it, because if it's not documented in the medical records, they're not likely to be approved Social Security for Social Security disability. They have to continue to see their doctor on a regular basis as well. That's also important. And is the doctor supportive? Does your doctor believe you're unable to work? All those things are key and important in a Social Security disability case. Assuming somebody does have a severe medically determinable impairment, and we move on to step 3. And step 3 is the first place where a case could be approved. Social Security has they used to call it a blue book. They used to publish a book that had diagnoses that were in under individual body systems, and they would publish that on an annual basis, and they called it a blue book. The reason was because of the book was blue. They since moved that onto the internet, and actually, if you Google it and you look in the web address, it says blue book in the web address, and that's why, because it used to be the blue book. But if somebody has a condition, it's listed in that publication, and they meet all the criteria under that diagnosis, then they would meet a listing, and Social Security would approve the case. If they don't meet a listing, they don't deny the case. They would move on to step 4, and that is, can that individual perform any of his or her past relevant work, the work that they've done in the last 15 years? So they've got limitations. Do those limitations allow them to perform their past relevant work? If Social Security says yes, then they would deny them. If they say no, they would move on to step 5. And step 5 is, could that individual adjust to do other types of work? So do they have transferable skills that they've obtained from their past relevant work to do other types of work? So key factors in that are age, education, and the type of work that they performed. If it was a very high skilled job that could be transferred to other types of work, then they may be denied. Age, again, is a big factor. The closer somebody is to retirement age, the less likely it is that somebody's going to have transferable skills to other work. If you're under the age of 50, Social Security considers you a younger individual, and it's pretty difficult because you're going to have probably transferable skills to do other types of work. So that's how Social Security goes about making the decision, whether or not it's done at the initial level or at the hearing level before a judge. They go through this 5-step sequential evaluation process. So that takes us to, okay, let's talk about the process when I actually file the claim. What happens to the claim? Just talk briefly about that. So Lacee mentioned earlier, there are multiple layers of government involved, which is why it tends to be so complicated and so complex and takes so long for a decision to happen. At the initial level, the initial application, you're filling out an application, filling out lots of paperwork, and that application is sent to the district office, the actual federal office, and they take care of the technical pieces of it and make sure that the individual is insured for disability, that they're not currently working, and that all the paperwork was completed appropriately. And once that's all processed, it goes to the disability determination services, and each state has their own DDS. And from there, that's who actually makes the medical determination. So they will order medical records. They'll send out questionnaires for the claimants to complete. They may send them to a consultative exam with one of their doctors. Once all that information is gathered, they'll make a decision and decide whether or not that individual meets the definition of Social Security under the rules. And then they'll say, we're approving it and we're denying it. They'll send it back to the federal office, and then if it's awarded, the federal office will then process that decision. If it's denied, then we go into the appeal process. That whole just initial step takes 6 to 8 months, and really the average is on the high end. It's 8 months at this point on average for a decision to happen at level 1. And that's much higher than it has been historically. A lot of that is due to COVID. Still some fallout from that. Had a lot of attrition at the Social Security offices. All the more reason why claimants or individuals need help from someone like Allsup to help them with that paperwork. Allsup knows what Social Security is looking for, so that's where we'll get into that more later. But that's how a representative can help, because any time some of the paperwork's not completed or they need additional evidence, that causes a delay in the process, and that sometimes that 8 months can be 12 months. If it's denied, it goes to the reconsideration level. And that's another 6 to 8 months. Again, 8 months on it's on the high end of the average. The same process takes place. It's not as big of an in-depth process as the application process. There is some paperwork that has to be completed, but it's a very similar process. Goes back to DDS, and then they basically reconsider their first decision. Oftentimes that's denied. And again, now you're talking you're 16 months into the process at this point if it's denied, and then it goes to the hearing level. The level 3 is the hearing level. which is where it actually then it goes to the administrative law judge. And basically that level is I want to file an appeal and I want a hearing before a judge. And there's a lot of waiting in that process as well. It can take 9 to 8 months, 18 months to get 9 to 12 months to get a hearing. And then once a hearing has taken place, it can take another few months for the judge to actually issue a decision. But this is the first place where the individual actually has the opportunity to tell the decision maker face to face, or a lot of times now these hearings are held over the phone or via video since COVID, but tell them why they're not able to work. And that's where most individuals end up being awarded, is at the hearing level. It's also where most individuals wait to obtain a representative, is at that hearing level. And again, most of these hearings are taking place via phone or video since COVID. That process, 9 to 18 months. If it's denied, there is another level, the appeals council level. Basically, you're saying the judge made an error in law in making the decision, and that's what that level is. Not a lot of success at the hearing level, but that can take 8 to 24 months as well. So very lengthy process, multiple layers of government involved. It highlights why it's important to have a representative to guide them through that process.
So let's look at some common diseases and diagnoses that are associated with filing with disability. Bear in mind, this is not an exhaustive list at all. These are just some more common conditions that Social Security is used to looking at. I will pause just for a second for you guys to take a look at that. Again, not exhaustive, but just some common. So while we're thinking about these types of conditions, Social Security does have what I would refer to as a kind of fast track when it comes to them reviewing a file. In relative of, there's nothing fast with Social Security, right? So they are looking at cases that they can tag as either compassionate allowance or terminal cases. So many of your cancers, brain disorders, ALS, Alzheimer's, these are conditions that they can pull a file, again, a little bit quicker, and send it off to that medical development process to see if they can approve the case a bit quicker. Bear in mind that there are absolutely people who have these conditions that still end up passing away while their case is processing at Social Security. There are additional cases that are sent off and they get approved, and that person doesn't even make it to the time that they start receiving a benefit from Social Security. So while this is a great way to flag cases that have that potential to move through the process a bit quicker based on the severity of their condition, Social Security is still, at the end of the day, very, very backlogged. But if you are somebody who's working with these types of conditions, and you have a patient that you feel could apply to this compassionate allowance program or the terminal program, obviously reach out to TJ or myself, and we can assist to see if it would be a case that, you know, could get flagged sooner.
All right. So it is complicated process, multiple layers of government, frustrating process, lots of paperwork to complete. Denials can be frustrating. Individuals give up. So why is representation important? So let's start by taking the reasons for denials angle. So what are some common reasons that individuals are denied? Well, one is inadequate medical evidence. Again, they have to have a severe medically determinable impairment. Means they have to see the doctor on a regular basis. Has to be documented in the medical records. Has to be documented by an acceptable medical source, meaning they have to see a doctor, an MD or a DO specialist is better. The claimant, it's helpful if the claimant or the individual is talking to their doctor and making sure that they're documenting everything that's happening. So that's advice that we can give them as a representative. Also, you as a case manager, make sure you're seeing your doctor, make sure you're talking to your doctor about everything that's happening in your condition. Conflicting medical records. So it could say in the medical records the claimant went on, or the patient went on a vacation, and that's all it says. It doesn't give any additional information. Well, that's conflicting with the individual's allegation that they're disabled and unable to work. It doesn't give any context. It doesn't say, well, I went on vacation, but I went to Disney World. I had to stay in the hotel while my family went out and enjoyed the amusement parks. It doesn't say that part, and so that can be an issue. It could also say sometimes the medical records are repetitive and they're boilerplate, and so it can say that the claimant's doing fine, no issues, no complaints, or they're everything's normal, which normal to that patient's not normal for somebody who doesn't have a disability. So details are important in the medical records. A representative can help clarify that and help look at the medical records and say, this probably is a problem that you might want to get clarified with your doctor. Sometimes Social Security is unable to locate the individual. So when we represent someone, we always make sure we get a third party that we can reach out to that can help locate that individual, because Social Security will, if they can't reach the individual, they will deny it for that reason. Failure to comply with deadlines. So there are deadlines, there's paperwork that has to be completed, and Social Security only gives you a limited time frame to complete that paperwork. And if they don't complete the paperwork, if the individual gets an activities of daily living questionnaire and they don't complete it, Social Security will deny that case for that reason. Doesn't matter what the medical records say in some of those instances. A representative can help stay on top of that and make sure that evidence is getting submitted timely. Individuals still working or earning above SGA, obviously that's kind of a black and white one. If somebody's working, they're not gonna qualify. Condition is not severe enough. Again, it's a medical records based program, meaning it has to be documented, and it's also about severity. It's not so much about diagnosis, but is it severe enough to prevent you from doing your past work and any other work? And then also the individual doesn't explain their condition clearly enough, or they're unable to, or they're not thinking about how they've accommodated, in particular with things like daily activities. They've just been living with it for so long. They just say, yeah, I can wash dishes, or yeah, I can clean my house, but they don't explain it further. They don't say, I can only do it for 10 minutes and then I have to rest for 30 minutes. They leave that part out, and representatives can help draw that out in those questionnaires, and also testimony if it gets to a hearing. Excuse me. Communication challenges. Sometimes individuals don't have a good understanding of their condition. They just don't understand what's happening. Sometimes they might minimize what's happening. A representative can help bring that out as well. Might have cognitive difficulties from medications, and that all those things are key to what's going on, and key to proving that someone's unable to work, because they may be focused just on the main problem, the main impairment that's preventing them from working, but oftentimes there's other things going on. Medications have side effects. There may be depression, anxiety that go along with that. Social Security considers all of that together. And it's important that's explained in their application. Sometimes they're mentally unprepared to deal with the changes in their health status or limitation. And again, they might have complex or multiple illnesses that don't unknown recovery. So all the reasons why it's important to have a representative to help them through that.
So again, just piggybacking off of what TJ had shared about why does somebody need a representative? Well, most people don't even know that the Social Security Disability Program exists. A lot of people are paying in through FICA tax. They don't necessarily know where it's going. I certainly did not know about the program before starting working at Allsup. It's just not a very well-known program to general society. For those who have gone ahead and applied and they've been denied, are frustrated and they don't want to continue the process. And if they happen to be one of those individuals that has one of those short-term or long-term disability policies, they have to continue, or it's going to impact that income as well. Overall approval rate without a representative is only about 35 to 40%. With the amount of people applying, which is about approximately 2 million each year, that's not a very large percentage of people. That means we have a ton of people getting denied. And then, of course, the wait times. TJ touched base on the wait times. It's continues to grow. It's projected to exceed 500 days or more. And if that individual doesn't happen to have a long-term or short-term disability policy coming in and they're unable to work, that is all time that they are not receiving an income, and that could be detrimental to their mortgage, being able to feed their family, and so many other things. Again, there are a ton of people applying for the disability system, and just like a ton of other agencies out there, Social Security is understaffed. They can't handle the incoming requests. Again, it's backlogging the system. And so you put all those together and it just makes the process even more frustrating for somebody who potentially doesn't even know how to navigate it to begin with. When you apply initially for Social Security, you have to provide all the paperwork for them just to get that file over for medical development. So that initial stage where they're making sure that person, is covered under the program, is a US citizen, is all the basic foundational items. Nearly 30% of those individuals get denied technically because they simply didn't provide the right paperwork. Maybe they were supposed to bring in a copy of their driver's license or, a copy of their green card, and they simply just did not do it. And so that's going to add time to their processing time because they essentially have to not start over, but bring in that paperwork, and then they have to reopen that file and get it headed in the right direction. So here is just a linear timeline of the timeframes that TJ had gone over. So you have that initial application, reconsideration, the hearing level, which is where the majority of individuals do hire a representative. But that's because it is the absolute scariest level. You are going in front of a judge. And whether that's a telephone hearing or an in-person hearing, that can be stressful for an individual with them not knowing what to say, what the expectations are. So that hearing level is also, again, the opportunity for them to explain what may not be mentioned in their medical records or may not be, presented well in their medical records, for them to explain all the things that they're not able to do.
So how do we know how much somebody's going to get on the benefit, and then what are representative fees? How much does a representative get paid? So as far as benefits go, it's a very complicated government formula is what they use to calculate benefits, and it's basically based on the individual's previous earnings record. So if they've paid their, again, higher wage earner, then their benefit's going to be a little higher. If they're a low wage earner, it's going to be probably under that average of around $1,500 per month. But it's calculated, again, based on the individual's earnings record. Benefits are not payable for the first 5 months of disability, but an individual can be paid retroactively back 12 months from the date that they originally applied. So again, that's one reason why it's important for them not to delay too long in applying. I mentioned again that the basic definition is they have to have been out of work for 12 months or expected to be out of work for 12 months. So they don't have to wait. They don't have to have been out of work 12 months to qualify. If they have a condition that's going to be expected to prevent them from working for 12 months, they should go ahead and apply early. Earlier the better. As far as representatives' fees, those are regulated by Social Security, and it's a one-time payment. It's 25% of any retroactivity benefits or that lump sum that individual would get out of work time. It's 25% of that up to a cap. And it's only if we're successful. So a representative only gets paid. Also only gets paid if we're successful in getting that individual benefits. So if we take a case and it goes all the way to the appeals council and we're unsuccessful, the case gets denied, there's no fee. So it's only if we're successful in getting them approved. Because it generally takes a while for Social Security to reach a decision, there may be two separate retroactive benefits or calculations that occur. So you could get one for that individual, and then they may calculate the dependent benefit after that as well. Monthly benefits, monthly payments begin at award time. Back pay, so in addition to retroactive payments, which is 12 months from the date of application, they will also get back pay for however long it takes for Social Security to make a decision. So if they file and they're eligible for 12 months at that time because their onset date was 12 months prior to the application, and then it takes them 2 years to make a decision, they could potentially get 3 years of back pay in benefits in that scenario.
All right, let's talk about the social determinants of health, a concept I know that everyone on this call is very close to. So how does it relate to disability? Well, when you're screening for the social determinants of health, you ask about work history, employment status, if they have a pending disability application, because that's all going to contribute to their financial stability. If an individual, is out of PTO, or maybe they haven't worked for a company long enough to have PTO, and so they're just not able to work, and then they're not, having that regular steady income coming in, they're not able to pay utility bills, cell phone bills, again, mortgage, food. As diseases and illnesses progress, it could potentially impact their ability to do their job in general. So walking, lifting, standing for long periods of time, depending on medication, maybe cognitive deficits as far as being able to follow instructions or work on a computer. So just having an understanding of the total picture of how their condition is impacting their daily life and their work environment. So how does the topic of disability come up? Have you worked recently? Did your doctor tell you that you are unable to continue to work? And what does that look like? What are those recovery times? Did you lose your job because you're unable to keep it? Or maybe they reduced your work hours? Or, some companies could potentially say you're not able to do this work, so we're going to put you on a leave of absence. Sometimes that's unpaid. So just having some foundational information of what's going on, the bigger picture of what's going on with them at work, and then explaining that the disability program exists. Again, there are a ton of people that may be eligible for these benefits, and they simply don't even know that the program exists. So how can you guys help? Identify those patients who have the severe illnesses or injuries. Again, somebody doesn't wake up on a random Tuesday and decide to become disabled. They're tough conversations, and essentially they're going into a new norm sometimes for them. Making sure that based on medical records and conversations that you're setting those expectations and clarifying the severity of their condition, educating them on, this is what the next 6 months to a year of your life is potentially going to look like. This is how therapies are going to impact it. This is how these multiple surgeries are going to impact it. And this program could be beneficial. Also making sure that they're aware that, this program does offer monthly income. It's not an easy process. Disability is not an easy thing to go through, but it offers them kind of a light at the end of the tunnel, that there is something out there that they can pursue while the rest of the chaos is going on with their medical, their appointments, the changes in their life. And then making sure that you're connecting them with the proper resources. Companies like Allsup, who essentially know the program front to back. Jim Allsup founded this company 40 years ago. We're actually celebrating our 40th anniversary this month. We have gotten 400,000 people approved for disability. He actually, as in Jim, he worked for Social Security right out of high school. He did not like the system. He didn't like the way that people were treated. He did not think that Social Security was taking care of them in their time of need. And so that's why he developed this company, so he could have representatives to be able to hold people's hands and walk them through the process. Allsup in general does essentially have a suite of services. I know TJ had mentioned our ticket to work. If somebody is concerned that if they file for disability, they will be on the program for the rest of their life, they don't have to be. Social Security does offer a safety net per se. It's a program that allows them to try to attempt to go back to work. And does not pull their benefit out from under them to see if they're able to continue and their condition doesn't exacerbate or a new condition pop up. Because if it does, then they can continue on the disability path. But there is a way off of disability if that's a concern for individuals, and we do have a program to assist with that. We also assist with VA disability appeals. Disability for VA is a little trickier. SSDI looks at your conditions as a whole. So they're going to say, okay, you have glaucoma, hearing loss, high blood pressure, and a hip replacement. And they're going to look and see if all that in conjunction prevents you from working. The VA, however, looks at different body parts to see if the disability per body part is a service-connected disability. So if you have hearing loss in both ears, they want to make sure that both ears are a service-connected disability. And then you may end up getting different ratings per the hearing loss in each ear. So you might have 10% on your right ear and 50% on your left ear. So an individual can actually have multiple appeals going with the VA system at one time. So it does add a layer of complexity, but also does have those assistive services as well. At the beginning of this session, it was mentioned that I had worked closely on our customer journey the past couple years. And we really wanted to look at the start to finish process when it comes to everybody's independent journey. The 55-year-old pilot that is losing his eyesight is going to have a much different journey of disability than maybe the stay-at-home mom who was in a bad car accident. Those journeys are going to look a lot different. And so we wanted to make sure that we were offering resources to assist with everybody's unique journey going through disability. We did find in our research that debt relief is a huge need for those going through the disability process. So we do assist with debt settlement, more specific credit card and medical bills, just because we found those are the two highest needs during this time. And we also provide resources. So as we're walking somebody through our process and they're needing additional resources, so prescription savings, food pantries in their area, prescription savings, we take all that into consideration and we can shoot them over a list of resources specific to their area. Because again, each experience and each need is going to be completely different. And we wanted to make sure that we were meeting our individuals where they were at in their specific journey. TJ and I are available for additional webinars. We're also available for additional questions. We just shot a lot of information out to you guys. I will be converting this PowerPoint into a PDF, and I will be providing it to the sponsors of this webinar, and they can share it. So if you guys were frantically writing everything down, it's okay, you can take a breath, and I'm going to send that information over. But I've added on to this slide where you guys can send over patients if they're interested in services, some different websites you guys can go and essentially kind of do your own research on Allsup and everything that we offer. So I'm going to pause there. Let's take a look. Start with the Q&A section.
Lacee, it's Doug, and I've been watching the Q&A. I think you answered most of the questions, but there are a couple of good ones. Does a parent's income factor into a child's application for SSDI or SSI?
Yeah, so that's a good question. SSI, household income is considered, so it does factor in there. Obviously, it differs from case to case. Go ahead.
I was going to say, for clarification, Allsup in particular does not assist with child applications. We do work specifically with adults for filing SSDI and SSI. So we
Are
can
there,
potentially answer some questions about the SSI child application piece, just for having basic knowledge on it. However, Allsup in particular does not help with children's cases.
are there other companies or agencies that do assist with child applications?
I believe that there are. I don't know
Okay.
any off the top of my head.
Okay. All right. Another question, why do some people never have to go to an IME evaluation
Yeah, good question.
appointment with a Social Security physician? Yeah.
Yeah, good question. So that has to do with that term, severe medically determinable impairment. So if it's and the consistency of the records and the detail in the records. So if Social Security has enough that all they need in the medical records from providing doctors, then they oftentimes will not schedule them for a consultative exam or an IME because they've got enough. They've got enough to make a decision based on the providing records. That's why it's important for them to continue to see doctors on a regular basis and to make sure that doctors are documenting everything. Yeah, so that's a good question.
Okay. Another one is when a person gets long-term disability through their employer benefits until retirement age, the long-term disability stops. How is the amount then determined that they'll get from SSDI or SSI?
So I assume this is talking about coordination with LTD. So LTD, oftentimes with long-term disability policies, there is a requirement that if you do have to take long-term disability, that you also file for any other benefits that you might be eligible for, including Social Security disability. And if an individual who's on long-term disability is awarded Social Security disability, oftentimes what happens is the long-term disability benefit will reduce by the amount that they get from Social Security. So if that LTD policy runs out at retirement age, then they would go down just to the Social Security benefit amount. So I assume they would lose the LTD amount. So the question may have been directed towards what happens with the SSI or the SSDI amount. And what happens at retirement age for SSDI is it simply switches from disability to retirement. There's no disruption in benefit. There's no disruption in the amount. They'd continue to get that same amount at retirement.
Yeah, the whole reason that LTD or short-term disability carriers require an individual to file is absolutely to save money on their end. They're wanting to pay that person less based on what they're getting from Social Security disability. However, Social Security disability, if that person does have that additional payment coming in, if that payment stops, the Social Security disability is not going to recalculate and adjust based on lost wages over here. They're just going to continue to pay what that person's amount was calculated at, with maybe some cost of living adjustments through the years, until that person either comes off of disability because they return to work, or it rolls over to regular retirement.
Okay. And the final one from the Q&A, can Social Security disability review and approval be expedited for someone diagnosed with a terminal diagnosis? And I believe that you did answer that.
Yes, they can. So we've got compassionate allowances that's a kind of a fast track, and a lot of those are terminal illnesses. But if somebody has like terminal cancer that may not be on the compassionate allowance list, they will still tag that as terminal, which should be an expedited process. That of course is relative with Social Security. They don't do anything fast, unfortunately, but should be in those situations. It should be adjudicated quicker than a normal case.
Anne, I don't have anything further. So do you have anything from the chat?
Let's take a look.
Sorry, one question was how many hours are SSDI clients able to work? Can they work at all?
So the easy answer is yes, they could work. So what Social Security is looking at again is SGA. They're not necessarily looking at hours. They're looking at how much you're earning. So if you're earning over $1,500 a month, they're going to consider that work. If it's under $1,500 a month, technically that's not going to impact the claim. I will say though, it may raise a red flag for Social Security if somebody's working while they're on Social Security. That okay, if you can work that amount, how much? Why aren't you able to work more? So again, that wasn't a cut and dry answer, but they're really looking at SGA.
and I don't know if this was in the Q&A, some people might have transferred it over, but how has long-term COVID determinations of benefits? How has
That's a good-
COVID impacted this whole process?
Yeah, so I assume that's about somebody who has long COVID, and Social Security has not issued a listing, haven't given a lot of guidance on how they're evaluating COVID claims, but those claims are getting awarded. If somebody was hospitalized and they were on a ventilator and they have a significant physical limitations as a result of that, those cases tend to go through quicker. If they have more of the, what I would say, invisible type symptoms or invisible disabilities, so fatigue or cognitive difficulty, those tend to take longer. But if the claim is well documented, then those cases are getting approved as well.
Okay, and one more, just if a person was receiving long-term disability through their employer, I think for a lengthy period of time and upon the next review for continuation of benefits, they are denied, are the representatives out there like SSD to assist the appeal?
I do not know I assume there are. I don't know the answer though.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Okay, so one question I'd like just to ask is if people have patients who are looking at long-term disability, or it's an injured worker for workers' comp, or it's a medical patient with a complex condition, and it really doesn't look like they're going to go back to work or can go back to work, can they apply right away? Or is there, should they wait for a period of time, or should this application be done right away?
Yeah, I would say the earlier the better. Good question. Again, the definition is 12 being out of work for 12 months or expected to be out of work for 12 months. So if they already know they've got a condition, their doctor's like, yeah, you're going to be out for at least 12 months, maybe longer, then it doesn't hurt for them to go ahead and apply at that time.
Okay, and then if people want to call or give patients, family members, you're not the Allsup number, you work with people all over the country, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we're a nationwide firm.
And they don't need to ask for you or Lacey, they can just call the company and, ask their question and.
Yeah, I would recommend that if you guys are going to refer over your patients, just mention to them that when they do call into Allsup, that they heard about Allsup through their case manager, social worker, whatever your exact title is. And that way we can just tag it as these conversations are helping people.
Okay, great. And the one thing somebody asked about receiving disability and approval, the expedited for someone diagnosed with a terminal, can Medicare get expedited too, or does that have to wait the 2 years?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a waiting period for Medicare, and that's not expedited. With two exceptions, ALS. So for ALS, there's no 5-month waiting period for cash benefits, and there's no waiting period for Medicare. They can actually be qualified for Medicare before they get on SSDI.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, and the other one was
and ALS is the only diagnosis for that?
For both. So
Yeah.
There's another one. So end-stage renal disease with dialysis is the other condition that there's not a waiting period for Medicare. There's
Yeah,
no waiting
right. As soon as they go on, right, I understand that.
Yeah, they just have to prove that they're on dialysis or show some documentation that they're on dialysis, and there's no waiting period for that condition as well. For Medicare.
Okay, great. I don't see anything else, Doug. Maureen, or thank you, Maureen. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, TJ and Lacey. Does the New England chapter want to say anything in closing?
Maureen's going to do some closing instructions, but thank you, TJ and Lacey. That was a great talk. And Maureen, did you have something?